Here we go. Here we go.
And we're live. Welcome everyone back to another episode with your favorite duo, the Oddest Couple. That is a pretty funny name of a show. The Oddest Couple, myself, Felix Levine, and John Alite. Quick reminder, if this is your first time tuning in, you got 3 episodes to catch up on, so get to it. You can find them all on YouTube, or you can find them if you listen to podcasts on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, like the video, comment. We love comments, the good ones. Share it, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. We're going to be posting a lot of short form content on TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, all that good stuff. John is a big following on Facebook, so if you're on Facebook, subscribe there. You'll get notifications when we drop episodes. Follow this man on Instagram at John Alite, myself on Instagram at Felix.Levine. I think that's all of the housekeeping. And if you, as I said, if you missed out on the first 3 episodes, get to it. They're very good, in my opinion. And we're going to hop right back into it today. Today's theme is an interesting one. It's a difficult one. I think it's one that there are people out there that are going to be able to relate to your situation. Some might not, but I think that the perspective, regardless, is extremely interesting. It's really that of being the parent of an incarcerated individual. I think what's mostly even more interesting about your situation is you were also previously incarcerated, right, for a very long time. So your insight is different. I think there's a lot of people out there that have incarcerated children, but they might not have been in jail. You spent a lot of time in jail. You've been to a lot of different jails all over the world. So I guess for you, when you think about being the parent of an incarcerated individual, is it more or less heartbreaking because you've been previously incarcerated yourself?
Oh, it's 100 times more heartbreaking to have your child in jail. I mean, there's no worse thing, I think, in a parent's life than to lose a child like I did. And me and my daughter, before she passed, she was always worried about her brother. And she used to tell me all the time, talk to him. So I'd like to dedicate this, obviously, to my daughter's memory and the conversations I had with my daughter about my son and the conversations I have with my son about him in jail prior and now. And I talk about the same thing, break the cycle. For people like myself, other parents have been in prisons, break the cycle for our kids.
What are those conversations like? Or I guess what were some of the earlier conversations with Jimmy, your son, who's in jail right now?
Not to do what I used to do. Make sure, go to work, which he did, but don't lose your temper. Control yourself. Don't be insecure about some of the things that, people say you do. Don't let them trigger you. And one of the incidents he got in, he let somebody trigger him. And and the person was wrong, and I told him, it's not about wrong or right. Why didn't you go in the house? And he didn't. He goes, did you go in the house? I'll never forget when he said it to me. Did you go in the house? I go, no, that's why I ruined my life. I didn't go in the house. That's why I'm telling you to go in the house. I know what you were going to do, and you did it. But why'd you have to prove that you would do it? Is the insecurity fact that you had to prove it. And the problem is, as a father, I have to live with it because no matter what I do, he saw me a certain way, so he wanted to be that way. So those are the consequences of my old actions. And as much as I try to drill it into them, and that's why I tell parents, mothers or fathers that are together or single parents, you have to drill in their heads that their lives are worth something.
I think it's kind of what you said right in the beginning. Like, as a parent, you've been probably through the 2 worst situations. right? One, I guess, I would even argue both are still ongoing in a lot of ways, right? Because the passing of your daughter will remain forever, and you're also, like, your son's still in jail, right? So it's like, at the same time, dealing with both grievances. How do you handle that, I guess, yourself internally, emotionally?
You know, parents that lost their kid, their children, they know. You're going to cry every day. Whether you're watching a movie out of nowhere, you cry. Whether you wake up and you're crying. Whether you go to bed, you're crying. It's emotional, nonstop pain. And then knowing that my son was incarcerated while his sister died is very painful to know what my son's going through, because I've lost other people that were close to me in jail, but not a sister like he just lost, and his only sister. So I know I can't be there for him. He's only there for himself. No matter what I say over phones or a glass visit, because we're behind glass, it's terrible. You can't hug him. You can't, you're on a telephone behind glass, and you're going to see him to tell him that his sister's gone, and that, please, this is not what she wanted for you either.
So you were the one who told him that?
Yeah.
And it was, you waited to be in person, right?
He knew it was while she was on life support.
Oh, okay.
His mother was talking to him, and she was sugarcoating it more than I wanted it to be sugarcoated, because we knew the ending, what was going to be. Eventually, I'd have to pull that plug. And we didn't agree. And I was more forceful on the phone with him, that get ready, because this is not going to be what your mom's saying.
What was the first thing that you had said to him when you first called him to tell him about what had happened? What was his first reaction?
I called the prison and asked the social workers, the counselors, if he can get a private call with me.
They grant it?
Yeah. The social worker was very nice, a woman. Granted it, let him go in the office to speak to me. And, there's no way to say it.
Yeah.
There's just, I told him, again, I brought up my book, Prison Rules. I said, go read it. You have it there. Go get a Bible. Pray. Know that she's with us. And you're going to have to be strong, not just for yourself, but again, from his nephew, my grandson, my daughter's son. And you have an obligation now to lead by example, not by words.
Yeah.
So you can promise, but you have to do it, what you're promising. And they're going to be difficult because, again, age, he's younger than me. So it's easier for me to do what I'm doing, even though I'm getting challenged on a regular basis, by these computers, by, people. And that's why I'm a big, big advocate for anti-bullying, what's going on with kids, because I see the attacks on adults by adults. I can only imagine somebody who's psychologically weak with insecurities, and kids are picking on them. And just recently in Jersey, a girl took her life after she was beat up and picked on, and I think it was Belleville school. And then another girl was very emotional and got up in front of a school board and discussing it. So I can only imagine what the bullying is like for these kids. It's just terrible, and these schools aren't doing enough. And I was talking to my son about jail now, and it's the same. You have to take a stand, and that means through the Bible, through education, through the loss of ego. You got to learn to learn humility, and that's a job as a father. Like, it's very painful to see this going on while you're sitting here. It's very easy for somebody to say, what's the big deal? Because they're not living it. If you really love your children, like most parents do, losing children and jail with children is the ultimate pain.
Do you think that, for lack of a better word, like your son Jimmy gets it now?
Oh, I 100% see the difference from when he first went to prison the first time, because he's been in and out several times, till now, and especially the loss of his sister. I think he gets it.
What's the difference like in terms of how do those differences manifest?
Well, psychologically, the experience of understanding you're wasting days and nights for no reason, useless, and that any action that you engage in as a reaction to whatever somebody's doing to you brings you nothing. Brings you nothing but long-term suffering, and you're alone. No matter how much anybody wants to be there with you, you're going to do it alone. That time, I used to say to guys in jail anytime that was with me in jail that were trying to do time with you, go do your own time. We came in here alone, we're going to leave alone, and we're going to leave Earth alone. So you need to stand on your own 2 feet, whatever which way you can do that alone. And, he's learning through doing so many years in solitary confinement and fights and incidences that you can be frustrated and angry all you want, but if you don't learn to overcome it, there's only one person really suffering besides a parent, and that's yourself.
Who do you think in this situation has suffered more? Is it him or is it you or your family?
It's me. I mean, whether it's me or it's any parent, they're going to have their own, and they're going to say, well, it ain't no big deal because I was in prison.
Right, because you've been on both sides.
It sucks, but you do the time like he does. He doesn't sit there complaining on the phone when he calls me from jail. He's just like, all right,
Has he ever complained to you while he's been...
Nah, just more complaining about holding his temper. The usual, what I keep telling him, you got to overcome your temper. You can't let people, and especially in jail, because again, jail's about a respect thing. And, so people don't let another guy disrespect them in jail. So there's ways to combat that. That means there's things in jail that I wrote about in the book that you don't do so you have less engagement. You don't gamble in prison, so there's less engagement. You don't play team sports because there's less familiarity with other inmates where they get out of pocket with you because they got interaction with you. You go to church, you do things, you program up where you're busy. So if you can go to school, you're in the library, you're in church, you're in the gym working out, so you're not interacting with other inmates as least as possible.
Wait, say more about why you don't play team sports?
Because guys get familiar with you. Say you're playing softball and you make an error. A guy opens his mouth to you.
Oh, I see.
Now you're arguing back and forth.
You're giving yourself a chance to beef.
So if you don't play that sport, that guy doesn't get to say that to you.
I see what you're saying.
So I'm not one of these guys that believe in these sports in jail. Go work out by yourself. Be friendly with 1 or 2 guys. That's it.
So it's better to completely keep your head down.
As much as possible, keep your head down. Program up to positive things. Some jails have music rooms. You go in a music room. You go to church, like I said. You take classes. You go to the library. You work out with 1 or 2 guys. You play individual sports, handball. You don't play basketball. You don't play sports where you foul a guy in basketball and he throws the ball at you, and now you're fighting. So you don't gamble because they don't pay, or someone lies about the money. Yeah. So you don't do any of these things, so you avoid incidents. And when you don't take this advice, this is not rocket scientists. This is logical advice from anybody that's been in prisons. You try to alienate yourself as best as possible without alienating yourself.
Yeah, it's a weird one too, though, because you hear people talk about how you need like alliances in jail.
Well, that's another thing. You create alliances in different ways.
The right ways.
There's groups, and then there's religious groups in there, whether they're Muslim or anything else, and they pray together and they do things, but it's positive groups and they'll stand with each other. So a lot of guys aren't true Muslims because of protection reasons. Others do it because of their belief in God and doing the right thing. And each person knows why they're doing it. Everybody can judge, everybody, doesn't matter. But same thing, if you're in church and you could be in church 2 or 3 hours a day reading the Bible and praying. That's 2 or 3 hours you're not interacting with other guys out on the compound.
Yeah. It's when Jimmy first went in, did you explain all these things to him? Had he read your book?
Yeah, he's read my books. He didn't read them on the street.
You read them in jail.
He read them in jail. Yeah.
What was? Do you remember the first time he went in?
Yeah, I remember the first time.
What was that like for you?
He got into a nonsense problem on a college campus with. It's funny. I'm laughing, but it's not funny, because he's a young guy and he was with one of his friends, a black guy, another guy, a Spanish guy, and they're in a hoopty. They're it's like an old jacked up car. It's it's like a neighborhood street car. You know what it is. It's from guys from the hood.
Yeah.
And he's all tatted up. You've seen him, tatted on his face, tatted his whole body. His friends are all tatted. They're dressing in hood wear, gangster, the way they dress. And he left my house, and I go, "Where you going?" And his friends came in, and I look at him. I go, "Where you guys going?" I know them all since they're kids. And they were from Camden, from out in South Jersey. Rough neighborhood, one of the biggest, per capita murder capitals. Mm-hmm. And they go, "We're going to Rutgers." So I start laughing. I go, "You three idiots are going to Rutgers?" I go, "To do what?" And I look at them. I go, "What are you doing?" So I know they're there to screw around. So I said, "Don't go there." I says, "Well, you guys don't belong there." I says, "If you want to go there, change the way you look and go there." I says, "If you go there like that, you're going to get jammed up." So that night he doesn't come home. I knew it. I'm waiting for the phone call. He's in prison. And they got into something over there. And he calls me and I answer the phone. He goes, "You mad at me?" I said, "I'm not mad at you." I says, "I'm just going to say one thing. How did that work out for you?" So he's like, I go, "Yeah, I'll send the lawyer. I'll get you out." So I get him out. And he went through some nonsense. It wasn't a serious case. And I go, "Listen, you're not understanding me." I says, "I've been here. You just need to go to work and get your life right so you don't ruin your life." And in his behalf, like when he got in some trouble, like even at the incident where a guy threatened to shoot him and, he ended up shooting the guy, the owner of the building, because it was an apartment house, also boarding house kind of, said he goes to work, he minds his business, he's quiet, he doesn't sell drugs, he's just but he looks, the way he looks is like he's a street kid gangster.
Well, yeah, and we're gonna put up the video that he sent you, which is it's a tough video. Well, it's just heartbreaking because you see him and he's in jail, but it's a good video. We'll put this up. I don't know if we're gonna edit it in or if we'll just post it simultaneously. We'll see. But for lack of better word, tatted head to toe, and again, I don't know. I'm personally not like that means anything, but it's hard to not, what that looks like.
Well, the problem is, I told him, people are going to always judge you.
Right.
Like you got ball players, it's normal. Everybody's tatted on their face, they're tatted on their body. Basketball players, football players, everybody. It's a different era. So my era of adults may think a little different, right? Because they judge you. You guys' era, it's acceptable. But the problem is still people are going to judge you, right?
And there's levels too. Like he's got
course.
like a lot.
Well, he's on another level. But what I did tell him is, okay, you had that incident, you got out of jail, and tell me, has anything changed? It's just going to be another guy like him threatening you, another guy that's going to take a shot, another guy that's going to try to antagonize you. It's not just one, it's going to be two, it's going to be three, it's going to be 10, it's going to be 15. You can't shoot everybody, you can't fight everybody. When you start realizing it's not an insecurity to walk away because you know what you're going to do. And I told him, and I know what that guy's going to do that threatened you, that you shot. He's a gangster, and the guy testified and gave information on him. Later on, the guy tries to retract it, but it's too late. You already said what you said. And this is what's going to go on in the street. You're going to have incident after incident. And it's never going to go away unless you want it to go away. So until you say, I want something different in my life, there is no different. And same thing in prison. You can get into fight after fight. It's very easy to get in fights in jail. But there's ways to stay out of those fights. Now, in jail, it's very difficult once you're challenged not to handle it because somebody senses weakness, the next guy. So it's a difficult situation. And that's why I wrote the book, Prison Rules with Nick, Christopher, because in that I explain how to avoid it before that starts. And the way to avoid that is just what I said, program up. If you're in a music room, if there's a music room, some jails have them, some don't. If there is one, and you're in there 2 or 3 hours with positive people, just kicking back, chilling and playing music and singing and whatever instruments, and then you go from there to church, and you go from church to school, and you go from school back to your cell, and you're reading books, and you're working out with 1 or 2 guys, and you're doing soul sports of like handball and stuff by yourself, there is very, very few minutes in a day to have a problem. If you don't program like that and you do different things, you put yourself in a position to get into that fight where it's very hard to get away with, to get out of. And people will say, what are you talking about? So here's one of the things I'm talking about. If you're in a rec room and you're gambling and a guy doesn't pay you, and you accept that, it's a problem. If you owe a guy $40 and he says it's 60, it's a problem. If you have a store in jail, which I used to have and other people have, especially in counties, where they don't have money and they buy a Hershey bar from you up front and you charge them 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 on that Hershey bar. When it's commissary week and he don't pay you, then another 3 guys don't pay you. So it's a problem. These are all situations you put yourself in by the actions you're committing. Or if you're staying with a group of guys and one guy has a fight with another group of guys, now you're in the fight also. So you don't stay in groups. You stay with 1 or 2 guys you know that mind their business. And if there is a situation, at least you have those guys and you make friends with other people with a hello and goodbye only, where there's a respect level because of the way you're carrying yourself. So this is all jailhouse nonsense. But it's important because in jail, the slightest, stupidest thing, depending on where you're at, can end up in a stabbing or a killing.
What do you think, like, Jimmy hopes for his life when he gets out, or his expectations of life when he gets out?
Well, he's kind of handy. So he's, he's a guy who could be a barber if he wanted to be. He could be something to do with painting. He's very artistic. He could be a tattoo artist. He knows a little construction, a little of everything, drywall, painting, carpentry. He knows enough. So listen, I told him, here's your expectations. People say trades. I tell people all the time about college. College was good for you, right? Maybe it's not good for the next kid. Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of millionaires from a trade.
Right.
You just become a plumber and they go, oh, he's only a plumber. Well, that plumber's very wealthy.
Starts his own business.
Yeah. So, entrepreneurship is a big thing if you're aggressive and you're a hustler. But for me, I told him, just get a job. That's all your expectations is that. Get a job, be confident in yourself, make a good living, a normal living, doesn't have to be a great living, and you'll be proud of yourself. But when you take shortcuts, that shortcut is never going to work. So the small-time drug dealer eventually wants to become a big-time drug dealer. You don't start on top. You got to work your way there. But to work your way there, there's all kinds of things that are going to happen in a negative way. You're going to go to jail. You're going to get set up. You're going to get robbed. You're going to be violent. And everything's bad. So go through the real long way, right? Like, remember the cartoon with Bugs Bunny when the turtle and the rabbit are racing and the turtle wins?
Yeah.
The slow path sometimes is a faster path.
Which of those trades does he want to do when he gets out?
I don't know. I told him do whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you feel good and you like going to work. And going to work, it's not just work all the time, it's relationships when you're at work, There's relationships and you're going to meet good people. People, family people doing the right thing. So when you stay with wrong people, things are going to go wrong. when you stay with people that don't break the law, people that go to work, people that have families, they have obligations. And when you have obligations, positive ones, you make positive decisions.
Does he ever talk about like, because what, he'll get out? How old will he be when he gets out?
He should get out next year. So he'll be 34.
Does he talk about like the desires for a family or stuff like that?
Yeah, he talks about a family all the time. He's he's family oriented. He's close. He talks to me almost every day. He talks to my, his aunts, his uncles. He talks to, so that he is. He's used to that upbringing, and closeness. He was close with his sister. And again, there's going to be that's a hard thing to overcome, and you're never going to overcome it, but you're going to learn to deal with it out of no choice. So he's going to deal with it like he's dealing with it now alone. At least when he comes home, he has support to deal with it with me and the rest of the family.
When you came back, was it hard for you to have regular relationships with people again?
Yeah.
How so?
Oh, because first it was an adjustment. When you come out of jail, anybody who's been in jail for a length of time is a big adjustment. You're not used to the crowds, the noise, the action moving so fast. Even though you think you are, you're not, because nothing's really moving in prisons. So, and then it's a social adjustment to get used to people. You're going to have to get used to people's rudeness. In jail, they're a little more in check because they know there's severe consequences to behave the wrong way with certain guys in there. Out here, you got no consequences by people's actions. You have people that are road raging all over the place, cursing you, even when they're wrong, they're cursing. And again, as you get mature and you go through some bad things, you start realizing, maybe this guy's road raging because his wife just cheated on him. Mm-hmm. Maybe because the husband just divorced the wife's mad. You don't know what's going on. Maybe somebody in their family just passed away. So there's reasons of the road rage too. I got into it with actually a big Muslim guy a couple of years ago, and he was next to me, and we said some words, and then I got next to him, and I said to him, "You should be his garb, he was wearing a Muslim garb, so I knew he was, and I said to him, I'm surprised in the way you're talking. I says, because the way you're dressed. And I says, and he was yelling, I just waved him off, and I went. Right? I wasn't in an aggressive mood at all. He pulled alongside me, beeped the horn. I thought he wanted trouble. And he says, "Hey, man, I'm sorry." And we both laughed. We joked. I said, "I hope you have a better day," because I'm having a bad day. He was a nice guy. People think that just because initially, sometimes you meet people even in the street that were your enemies become your friends, or you met them initially the wrong way and he becomes one of your best friends. This guy just happened to be a gentleman that realized, hey, I'm wrong, and came back over to me. And I could have been an idiot. Instead, I was the same thing. I go, I shouldn't have said nothing either.
Right.
And the guy was a gentleman who you walk away smiling, because he wasn't smiling before that. We drove away smiling. We both did.
When parents of incarcerated children talk to you and they ask you for advice, what's usually your go-to pieces of advice?
For a parent?
Mm-hmm.
People like mail in jail. And, they want to know that people are caring. They're reaching out. So contact is very important to keep the person in jail knowing that people care about you. So I tell a parent, be supportive. You can't be supportive and understand what he's going through or she's going through in prison, but there's ways to be supportive out here. So I tell a parent, don't ask a lot of questions, because in jail, you're on phones, people are around you, can't talk openly. There's days when they're very lonely and you're sad. That's part of being in jail. And to be emotionally there for them. So,
what do you, I guess, as, parent of an incarcerated individual, like hope for him in his life when he gets out? Like, do you think about that?
Well, he's doing it now with us. He's done it a couple of times. He called in live when we were on shows. He called in on the live call-ins. He called in other shows. He just did a short video. And I told him, you want to feel good about yourself? I says, you want to do something right? Help the next kid so he doesn't end up like you. Do you remember when you were this way at the beginning before you did all this time? I says, you remember what it is now? That's why a lot of times kids will talk to me and he told me, oh, I did 6 months. It's nothing. Oh, yeah, it is something. I said, it's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
You lost 6 months of that.
Yeah.
I go, those same 6 months, you could have been on vacation. You could have been at the beach. And the biggest thing, you could take a shower and a bath without wearing what we call slides. Those are, slippers that you go into a shower with because of what's in those showers. Think about what every disgusting thing that can go on in that shower goes on. From the toilet to sex to this to that, and you got to step on it. So you got to wear shoes when you go in there. Little things like that people don't realize. In the middle of the night when you're in a cell, there is no waking up and going in the refrigerator and get some juice. There is no going in the ice box and getting ice cream. Simple little things.
Yeah.
So those are the things that people forget. Or when you have a cold or you don't really feel good, you can't just go to the doctor.
Yeah.
So these are the consequences of your actions in the past.
What was when you were in jail, the one thing that you missed the most from like one of those small things that you just described?
Sitting in a bathtub.
Really?
I used to dream of it. Just to get in a bath.
Like a warm bubble bath?
Yeah, and just relax. Just lay there, put on music. I used to, my house, I had everything. So I had jacuzzis. So I used to sit in the jacuzzi or the bathtub, smoke a cigar, and have a glass of wine and play. I used to like Jackie Wilson. So I used to listen to Jackie Wilson and, old-time music like that and just chill, put a candle on. You don't get to do that when you make those kind of mistakes.
Do you remember the first time you took a bath after jail?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was it like?
It's indescribable because it's something that you completely missed. It was like the first day I went to the beach. And you look at the ocean and say, man, it didn't look like this when I left before. Mm-hmm. Because now you had a different appreciation.
Yeah.
And, there's people like who I'm going to keep talking about till everybody's sick of me talking about him, Oscar Lugo. Because he was a kid when he went in. He was a little older than you. And now he's 51 years old. Going to be 51. And I read his case. That's why I'm talking about him so much. He didn't get any of his hearings. He didn't get anything. He was completely like he's in another country, how he was treated. He shouldn't be there. And I can only imagine what it would be for him to come home to his children. And I think about it as a father. And that's why I'm out of my way trying to really help him come home to his kids and his grandkids. He's done 20-something years now. So when I'm looking at guys like him who are positive individuals, and I know he's not going to be a guy. I know from my experience that guy will never go back to jail for anything wrong again. So I'm pushing hard to get him home.
Yeah.
And, some individuals are positive people. Even in jail, 20 years with no incidents. You know how difficult that is? Nothing at all. Not a scratch on his record.
Yeah. It's heavy because it's, even as an outsider looking in, like, because there are a lot of stories where you hear, oh, this person did that and that this amount of time and that amount of time. I think that a lot of people, regular people like me, we get very desensitized to it. And we hear, oh, okay, did 5 years. Oh, okay, 5 years.
Well, when you say it right, the way you just said it, 5 years. They don't get it because 5 years
I'm thinking about where I was 5 years ago.
Exactly.
I was in high school.
Yeah. When somebody says, oh, he did 20. Well, it's easy because you only said the number 20.
Yeah.
You're not
thinking about that, like, or when somebody says like 20, like for me, I'm 23 years. I'm like, that's literally this from the day that I was born till today I spent locked up. That is an incredible amount of time.
I've been in jail almost your whole life.
Isn't that crazy?
So think of all that wasted time for what? For what? My ego?
It's so wild.
So when guys are bothering me now and talking, even though I don't respect most of these guys, I mean, why would I do anything to be an idiot? Because the next guy's just going to say what he's saying. They think there's somebody special when they're bothering you. Like, like he's the only one bothering. This guy's bothering you, that guy's bothering you. And then you get these, I'll give you an example. There's a guy that grew up in my neighborhood. Not a bad guy. Joe Panzarella's his name, right? Rich kid. Father was very wealthy real estate guy. Not a bad kid. I was always nice to him. It's like they have Stockholm syndrome. They kiss ass, they're spineless to the guys that are always shitty to them.
Yeah, yeah.
And they still talk to those guys. A guy like myself that was always nice to them, they know I'm dangerous or was very dangerous. They, not that they badmouth me, but they talk not in a positive way.
Right.
You want to get in front of him and say, like, you know, when his father was in the same building and in the same unit as a guy, Mike Patetta was my accountant, nice guy. They had a couple incidents. They called me up. I'd go there. I think he remembers, even though he was younger. And I helped him out. I wasn't ever a guy that did anything wrong to them. So why would you talk against me?
Yeah.
You know, you got kids probably now, I guess. You're married. Don't you have any kind of sense of pride? Or, you know, does that make you feel good that you're an ass kisser to somebody else? That you're not man enough to stand on your own 2 feet? That you want to do bidding for other people and talk? You're going to get brownie points? Like, what does it take? Does it take the old me to go step up to you?
Yeah.
It's a weird behavior of these guys, especially when you never did nothing wrong. You were nice to them. So I don't understand the behavior in it, you know. So the behavior, I guess, is some sort of weakness of, I don't know what the hell it is. I don't know because I don't act like them. So, you know, if I was the wife with a child and one of these guys, I'd say, well, maybe he'll regret it one day. I don't know. Or maybe he just does it because he's intimidated by whoever he stays with. And he's not man enough to stand up and say and speak truthful. I don't know. I don't know what's on his mind. It's not like these guys ever did anything. They're not killers. They didn't go to jails. They understand somewhat of the life.
I think it's when you don't understand, then you can act all stupid, right? But you've been in those situations. You've killed people. You've been in jail. You've been
and these guys are educated, so they understand the betrayal of that life.
Yeah.
So the people they're friendly, they know they betrayed.
Yeah.
They know they didn't follow our rules. They know they lied. They know they stayed with guys that were junkies and shooting up, and so but yet they support them still. I don't get it.
Right.
And I'm not sure because he's not a bad guy. So I won't say this guy's a bad guy, Joe. He was always a decent kid. His father was a nice guy.
I almost feel like even just like a day in jail could change the whole thing.
Because they didn't go to jail.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
Just a night, you know what I mean?
Well, I used to say this about the shitty guards because there's some shitty guards. Like, give them 2 weeks in solitary confinement so they understand what it is when they're talking to guys. Because I had a guard that wouldn't give me toilet paper when I was in solitary confinement. And then you got to abuse him verbally, and then he threatens you, and then you got to worry that they're spitting in your food. And I'm like, hey, man, why don't you just give me the fucking toilet paper? What's your deal, man? What are you so insecure about? But then they talk tough. But then, you know, this is the old me when I was in there. I says, well, open that cell door and see how tough you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And they ain't going to open it up. And thank God he didn't, because you get a new charge for beating him up.
Yeah.
You know, he's a heavy, big weightlifter, but he's rolling up his sleeves because he's insecure, fat arms. You know, so, you know, he figures that he's, you know, whatever he was, 260, 270, 280. He's pumping 500 pounds, and he thinks that's going to help him. But the truth is, he wouldn't act like that if he was a tough guy. Like I said, these guys I know from MMA, UFC, professional fighters, whether they're Bobby Ches or no, they don't talk like this. They're gentlemen because they're secure about themselves. When they're insecure, they act like that.
Yeah, it's humans are weird, you know. Even what we were just talking about like a few minutes ago, and I was thinking, like, we were saying 5 years a lot. Like, I'm even thinking, you know, when you like don't want to do something and you're waiting like a week for it to pass, like even a week in jail, that's a long.
You just went to Dubai, right?
Yeah.
And before that, you were in Paris, right?
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
My son's sitting in a cell every day, solitary confinement, getting locked up while you're living life.
Yeah.
And you're a lot younger than him. You're living life till its fullest. You imagine if you couldn't do any of those things and you're just sitting in those cells, wasting your life.
Even if
there's no purpose of it.
Take away Dubai and all that. If you tell me like I can't have toilet paper, I'm not even kidding. Like, jokes aside, that would fucking
think about.
wreck me.
Let me tell you about showers so people understand what I'm talking about. They swallow drugs, whether when they first come in prison, before they know they're coming in, so they swallow a balloon full of drugs. They go in the shower and they shit it out. So that's why shit all over the walls and the floors sometimes in some of the showers because they're getting their drugs out. You got to step in that.
Wait, why are they getting their drugs out? Oh, because they have them.
They swallowed it, so they get shit out, so they have drugs when they're inside.
Wait,
Okay.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So, that's one way on visits. So somebody will try to sneak them in, or guards are bringing them in, or somebody that works in the jails bringing them in, or nurse. And, sometimes it depends on where you're at, they swallow it. Then they go back to the cells. They're not going to shit in the toilet because they're scared they're going to lose it. So they shit in the shower. Shit it out, clean it up. It's in a balloon, they open it up, and they got their drug. So you got a shower in that. You got community showers and community toilets and sinks where guys are, their hygiene is terrible. They're spitting in the sink, and you'll see another guy fight him because he just spit in the sink. He's honking in the sink with his nose. He's putting his feet religiously in the sink when they're praying instead of putting it in the sinks that are in some of the laundry rooms. And these are the incidents. If you're an inmate, what do? You let them do it? Do you say something? Do you fight? These are terrible situations because there's no win. And this is what you're dealing with when you're in prison that no one's talking about, right? So these guys are talking about you're going to jail, be a man, and that's not all. That's not what it's all about.
That's the small shit.
Yeah. I seen guys die in jail. They went to the nurse's office and said they're sick, and they put them on a call out from 2 weeks. They go back and tell them, here's Tums. They say, you got acid, they die of heart attacks. And I'm not telling a story that a million guys don't know about. This is what you do to yourself when you put yourselves in those situations.
Yeah.
So when someone opens their mouth to you, walk away. It doesn't make you less a man.
Yeah.
That guy's only talking like that because he knows you're not going to do it.
Yeah, I know. We could probably go on for hours, but we'll save that for the next episode. Yeah.
So one last thing for guys that are struggling with how to handle themselves, if they have situations, money, this and that, write us. I mean, I answer a lot of people, and people that write me will tell you if you write directly where everybody could see, I answer a lot of people. A lot of kids, girls and guys write me about advice. How do I do this? How do I do that? And I sincerely mean that. I like to help you get through it because at one time or another, I didn't listen to a couple of people that did help me. There was a couple of people. When I first went to prison, I didn't want to hear it. And, I hope if you're looking for a helping hand, you'll get it with us. So.
And, I know that we're going to do some more, call-ins. And so there'll actually be opportunities to directly speak to John and I. Later down the road, we just got to figure it all out. But I'm very excited to be back with our 4th episode here. We're going to continue to get, in my opinion, very high quality content out weekly. So if this was your first episode and you're still listening up to this point, thank you so much. Make sure you follow John on Instagram at John Alite, myself at Felix.Levine. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. The Oddest Couple is back.
Contact your local politicians about fentanyl. Keep pushing for our kids in our neighborhoods, our schools. It's a serious problem. We're losing a lot of lives, and you got to push our politicians in each district to do something about it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.